Cruel Heir forces his fiancée to marry his driver. What she does next shocks everyone. Ethan's grand estate was alive with the sounds of clinking glasses, laughter, and the soft hum of an orchestra playing in the background. The evening air carried the scent of freshly cut roses and the faint aroma of expensive wine. Guests, dressed in dazzling gowns and sharp tuxedos, mingled under the glow of crystal chandeliers. This wasn't just a party. It was a showcase of wealth, power, and status. At the center of it all was Ethan, the heir to the powerful Whitmore family fortune. His sharp suit, tailored to perfection, did little to mask the smug confidence that radiated from him. He stood near the towering fireplace, a glass of champagne in hand, commanding attention as he shared tales of his latest business conquests. Every so often, he would glance at Clara, his fiancée, as if she were another accessory to his success. Clara, however, didn't share Ethan's enthusiasm. Her delicate features were set in a polite smile, but her eyes revealed her unease. She felt out of place in this world of ostentatious wealth and shallow conversations. Tonight's engagement party was supposed to be a celebration of their future together, yet she felt like a prop in Ethan's carefully curated narrative. Ethan's voice boomed across the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, I must say, tonight is more than just a party. It's the beginning of a legacy." He raised his glass, the guests following suit. To Clara, the future Mrs. Whitmore, the room erupted into applause, but Clara barely heard it. Her thoughts were elsewhere, her mind replaying the countless moments that had led to this point. Ethan's charm, which had once seemed genuine, now felt hollow. His compliments had turned into condescension, his affection into possession. As the toast ended, Ethan approached Clara, his smile wide but his tone dripping with authority. "Smile a little more, darling. You're the star of the show." Clara forced a smile, her discomfort growing. She wanted to escape, even if just for a moment. "Excuse me," she said softly, stepping away before Ethan could protest. She made her way toward the quieter corners of the estate, her heels clicking against the marble floors. The crowd thinned as she entered the garden, where the cool night air offered a brief reprieve from the suffocating grandeur inside. It was here she found Liam, the family's driver, leaning against the side of a sleek black car. Liam looked up, startled but not surprised to see her. He straightened, his posture respectful but relaxed. "Miss Clara, everything all right?" Clara sighed, her shoulders dropping as if a weight had been lifted. "I just needed a break. It's overwhelming in there." Liam nodded, his dark eyes steady and kind. "I can imagine. These parties aren't for everyone." She gave a small laugh, the sound tinged with sadness. "They're not for me, that's for sure." They stood in silence for a moment, the sounds of the party fading into the distance. Clara found herself appreciating Liam's calm presence. He wasn't like the others inside. There was no pretense, no need to impress. He simply listened, offering her a sense of normalcy she hadn't realized she craved. Back inside, Ethan scanned the room, his brow furrowing when he didn't see Clara. His irritation grew as he made his way to the garden, finding her in conversation with Liam. The sight of his fiancée speaking to the driver, laughing, even, ignited a spark of jealousy he couldn't ignore. "Clara," Ethan called out, his voice sharp. He strode toward them, his presence immediately tense. "What are you doing out here? The guests are asking about you." Clara straightened, her expression neutral. "I needed some air. Liam was just keeping me company." Ethan's eyes flicked to Liam, his gaze cold. "I'm sure he was. But this isn't his job, is it?" Liam held Ethan's glare without flinching, his tone measured. "I was just making sure Miss Clara was all right." Ethan's lips curled into a mocking smile. "How noble of you. But let's remember our places, shall we?" Clara stepped forward, her voice firm. "That's enough, Ethan." He was being kind. Ethan's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing, choosing instead to take Clara by the arm and lead her back inside. As they re-entered the party, Ethan leaned close to her, his tone low and biting. "You're making a scene. Don't embarrass me like that again." Clara's jaw tightened, but she didn't respond. The rest of the evening passed in a blur, with Ethan basking in the attention of his guests while Clara endured the facade of a perfect engagement. Later that night, as the guests departed and the estate fell silent, Ethan sat in his study, nursing a glass of whiskey. His mind replayed the garden scene, and his irritation grew. How dare she question him, and with the driver no less. He resolved to remind Clara of her place, to assert his control in a way she wouldn't forget. The next morning, over breakfast, Ethan dropped his bombshell. "I've made a decision," he said casually, cutting into his toast. "You're going to marry Liam." Clara froze, her cup halfway to her lips. "What?" "You heard me," Ethan said, his tone almost amused. "You seem so fond of him. Let's see how you enjoy life at his level." Clara stared at him, her shock quickly giving way to anger. "You're serious?" "Dead serious," Ethan replied, leaning back in his chair. "Consider it a lesson. Maybe then you'll appreciate what I've offered you." Clara set her cup down carefully, her hands trembling. But instead of the outburst Ethan expected, she simply nodded. "Fine." Ethan's smirk faltered. "Excuse me? You want me to marry Liam? All right, I will." Ethan's confidence wavered, but he quickly recovered. "Good. We'll arrange it immediately." Clara rose from her seat, her expression calm but resolute. "I'll handle it myself." As she left the room, Ethan watched her go, a flicker of doubt creeping into his mind. This wasn't the reaction he had anticipated, but he pushed the thought aside, convinced that his plan would humble her, forcing her to come crawling back. Little did he know, Clara's quiet acceptance wasn't submission. It was the first step in a plan of her own. Ethan underestimated Clara. As she walked away from the breakfast table, her mind was already racing, piecing together her next move. His arrogance was glaring, his scheme laughable, but Clara knew better than to lash out. Anger wouldn't win this battle, calm resolve would. She spent the morning in her room, staring out the window at the sprawling estate that had once seemed like a dream. The wealth, the power, it had all dazzled her in the beginning. But now it felt like a gilded cage with Ethan holding the key. Marrying Liam was meant to humiliate her, to remind her of her place. But she saw an opportunity in his cruelty, one he couldn't possibly predict. Later that day, she found Liam in the garage, his hands grease-stained as he worked on one of Ethan's luxury cars. He looked up as she approached, his expression wary. "Miss Clara," he said, wiping his hands on a rag. "Something wrong?" Clara hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to begin. But then she took a deep breath. "Ethan wants me to marry you." Liam froze, the rag slipping from his hands. "What?" "He's angry about last night," Clara explained, her tone steady. "This is his way of punishing me." "And you?" Liam's brow furrowed. "Punish us? By forcing you to marry me? That doesn't make any sense." "It makes perfect sense to him," Clara said bitterly. "He thinks this will humiliate me, that I'll beg him to take me back." Liam stared at her, trying to process the absurdity of the situation. "And you're going along with it?" Clara met his gaze, her expression determined. "I am, but not for the reasons Ethan thinks." Liam looked at her for a long moment before nodding slowly. "All right, what's the plan?" The wedding was hastily arranged, as Ethan had intended. He made no effort to hide his disdain for the union, ensuring it took place in a modest courthouse with no guests or fanfare. He even insisted on attending, his presence a glaring reminder of the power he believed he still held over Clara. As Clara walked down the aisle, her steps measured and her chin held high, Ethan smirked from the back of the room. This was his victory, or so he thought. Liam stood at the altar, his usual composure intact, though Clara noticed the slight tension in his jaw. He was nervous, but he wouldn't show it, not in front of Ethan. The ceremony was brief, the vows spoken with quiet resolve. When it was over, Clara turned to Ethan, her hand resting lightly in Liam's. "Happy now?" she asked, her tone even. Ethan's smirk widened. "Delighted. I hope you enjoy your new life." Clara said nothing more, leading Liam out of the courthouse and into the bright sunlight. Ethan stayed behind, basking in what he believed was his triumph. But as the days passed, he began to sense that things weren't unfolding as he had anticipated. Clara and Liam settled into a modest apartment in a bustling part of the city, far removed from the luxury of Ethan's estate. To Ethan, this was her exile, but to Clara, it felt like freedom. She took up a job at a local nonprofit, throwing herself into work that fulfilled her, while Liam continued driving for a small private service to make ends meet. Despite the challenges, they quickly adapted to their new life. Liam was kind and supportive, treating Clara with a respect she hadn't experienced in years. They spent evenings talking about their dreams and aspirations, slowly forming a bond built on mutual understanding. One night, as they sat on the worn couch in their tiny living room, Clara turned to Liam. "What did you want to do before you worked for Ethan?" Liam hesitated, then smiled faintly. "I wanted to start my own business, a logistics company, to help small businesses with affordable shipping solutions. But life got in the way." Clara's eyes lit up. "Why didn't you ever try again?" He shrugged. "Didn't have the resources. And after what happened with Ethan's family, I figured it wasn't worth the risk." Clara leaned forward. "What if I told you it was?" Liam looked at her, confused. "What do you mean?" She smiled, a spark of determination in her eyes. "Let's make it happen. Together." As weeks turned into months, Clara and Liam worked tirelessly on building his dream. Clara used her connections from the nonprofit world to network with small business owners, while Liam refined his business model and pitched his ideas. Their dynamic was effortless, their partnership natural. For the first time in a long while, Clara felt like she was contributing to something meaningful. Meanwhile, Ethan grew increasingly frustrated. He had expected Clara to come crawling back, begging for forgiveness, but instead, she had vanished from his world entirely. The gossip circles were quiet. No tales of her misery or humiliation had reached him. It was as if she had disappeared. Unable to contain his curiosity, Ethan decided to investigate. He hired a private investigator to follow Clara and report back. What he discovered only fueled his anger. "They're thriving," the investigator told him. "Clara's working at a nonprofit, and Liam's starting his own business. They seem happy." Ethan couldn't believe it. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. Clara was supposed to suffer, to regret ever defying him. Instead, she was thriving, and with his driver, no less. Fueled by jealousy, Ethan vowed to put an end to it. What he didn't realize was that Clara and Liam were already one step ahead. Ethan's frustration boiled over. He couldn't understand how Clara and Liam had turned what was meant to be a punishment into an opportunity. It gnawed at him, day and night, that the very people he had sought to humiliate were thriving. In his mind, Clara was her happiness without him felt like an affront. Determined to regain control, Ethan began plotting. Meanwhile, Clara and Liam continued to build their new life, unaware of Ethan's growing obsession. Their logistics business was gaining traction, thanks to Clara's strategic planning and Liam's dedication. They spent late nights working on proposals, networking with clients, and refining their processes. The modest apartment that had once felt like a temporary refuge now felt like home, a space filled with hope, laughter, and possibility. One evening, as they reviewed contracts in their living room, Liam glanced at Clara. "You know," he said softly, "this isn't where I thought I'd be 6 months ago, but I wouldn't trade it for anything." Clara smiled, her heart warming at his words. "Neither would I. It's not what we planned, but it feels right." Liam nodded, his gaze steady. "That's because we're building something real. Not just a business, but trust, a life." "I never thought I'd find that." Clara felt a lump in her throat. For so long, she had felt trapped, undervalued, and unseen. But with Liam, she had found a partner who treated her as an equal, someone who believed in her as much as she believed in him. Their moment was interrupted by a knock at the door. Clara's brows furrowed. They weren't expecting anyone. Liam stood, his movements cautious, and opened the door. Standing there was a man in a sharp suit, his expression unreadable. "I'm here on behalf of Mr. Ethan Whitmore," the man said, his tone crisp. He'd like to meet with Mrs. Whitmore immediately. Clara felt a chill run through her. What does he want? She asked, her voice steady but guarded. The man hesitated. He didn't say. He just asked that you come to the estate. Liam stepped forward. If Ethan wants to talk to her, he can do it here. The man's gaze flicked to Liam, then back to Clara. I'm just the messenger. Clara glanced at Liam, then back at the man. Tell Ethan that if he has something to say, he can say it in writing. The man gave a curt nod and left without another word. As the door closed, Liam turned to Clara. What do you think he wants? Clara's expression hardened. Control. He hates that he's not the center of my world anymore. But I'm not giving it back to him. Ethan, however, wasn't the type to give up easily. When Clara refused his invitation, he decided to escalate. Using his influence, he attempted to sabotage Liam's budding business, spreading false rumors among potential clients and creating roadblocks for their operations. For a time, it seemed like his plan might work. Several deals fell through, and the momentum they had built began to waver. But Clara and Liam refused to back down. They doubled their efforts, working harder than ever to rebuild trust with their clients. Clara's sharp mind and persuasive skills proved invaluable, while Liam's unwavering determination inspired confidence. Slowly but surely, they regained their footing. Their resilience only fueled Ethan's rage. Desperate to assert his dominance, he decided to confront them directly. One afternoon, as Clara and Liam were finalizing a new contract in their office, Ethan stormed in, his presence as overbearing as ever. He didn't bother knocking, his expensive shoes echoing against the tile floor. Well, Ethan drawled, his tone dripping with mockery. Look at you two, playing house, building your little empire. How quaint. Clara looked up from her work, her expression calm but unyielding. Ethan, to what do we owe the pleasure? Ethan smirked, though it didn't reach his eyes. I came to see how my charity project was doing. I must say I'm impressed. I didn't think you had it in you. Liam stood, his posture firm. We didn't need your charity. And we certainly don't need your interference. Ethan ignored him, focusing on Clara. You think you've won, don't you? Building this little life, pretending you've moved on. But we both know you belong in my world. Clara rose from her chair, her gaze unwavering. I don't belong to anyone, Ethan. Least of all you. Ethan's smirk faltered. You think you're so clever, so strong. But I made you. Everything you have now is because of me. Clara stepped closer, her voice steady. You didn't make me, Ethan. You tried to break me. But instead, you showed me what I'm capable of without you. Ethan's face twisted in anger. But before he could respond, Liam spoke. It's time for you to leave. Ethan turned to him, his tone venomous. And who do you think you are? You're nothing but a driver. Liam met his glare without flinching. I'm the man who respects her. Something you'll never understand. The room fell silent, the weight of Liam's words hanging in the air. Ethan opened his mouth to retort but found himself at a loss. For the first time, he realized he wasn't in control, and it terrified him. Ethan left that day, but the confrontation marked a turning point. Clara and Liam continued to grow stronger, their business flourishing despite Ethan's attempts to undermine them. Meanwhile, Ethan's own world began to crumble. His reckless decisions and arrogance alienated his allies, and his once unshakable empire started to falter. Clara and Liam didn't celebrate his downfall, but they didn't mourn it either. They focused on their future, building a life rooted in respect, partnership, and purpose. And as they stood side by side, they knew that Ethan's cruelty had inadvertently given them the greatest gift of all, freedom. For Ethan, the realization came too late. As he watched Clara and Liam thrive from afar, he was forced to confront the truth he had long avoided. His wealth and power had never made him invincible, and in trying to control Clara, he had lost the only thing that might have saved him. Ethan's descent into isolation was gradual but undeniable. As his business empire began to unravel, he found himself surrounded by fewer and fewer allies. The people who had once clung to his coattails for their own benefit now avoided him, their loyalties shifting toward more stable and less toxic opportunities. Ethan was left to face the consequences of his arrogance alone. In contrast, Clara and Liam's lives blossomed. Their logistics business expanded beyond their initial expectations, thanks to their reputation for integrity and their deep understanding of the challenges faced by small businesses. Clara's sharp mind and strategic planning, combined with Liam's tireless work ethic, created a partnership that clients trusted implicitly. Ethan's reckoning. One cold afternoon, Ethan found himself pacing his now nearly empty mansion. The grand estate, once filled with lavish parties and high-profile guests, was eerily quiet. The silence was deafening, forcing Ethan to confront the thoughts he had long buried. How had it come to this? How had he, Ethan Whitmore, lost everything? He poured himself a drink and sat in the expansive living room, the fire crackling weakly in the hearth. The opulence around him felt hollow. For the first time, he allowed himself to reflect on his actions, not just toward Clara, but toward everyone he had dismissed or belittled in his life. He thought of the garden, the moment he had forced Clara to marry Liam out of sheer spite. He had expected her to crumble under the weight of his cruelty. Instead, she had risen, and in doing so, she had exposed the fragility of his own identity. Ethan downed his drink and stared into the fire. It was time to face the truth. He had been wrong. About everything. An unexpected meeting. Weeks later, Clara and Liam were hosting a community event at their logistics hub, celebrating the launch of a new initiative to support small businesses. The space buzzed with energy as local entrepreneurs mingled, exchanged ideas, and connected with potential collaborators. Clara moved through the crowd, her smile genuine as she greeted attendees. Liam was at her side, his presence steady and supportive. Toward the end of the evening, as the crowd began to thin, Clara noticed a familiar figure standing near the entrance. Ethan. He looked different. His once impeccably tailored suits had been replaced by a simple coat, his posture less confident, almost hesitant. Clara's heart skipped a beat, not out of fear or anger, but surprise. She hadn't expected to see him again, let alone here. Liam noticed her pause and followed her gaze. "Do you want me to handle this?" he asked gently. Clara shook her head. "No, I'll talk to him." As she approached, Ethan turned to face her, his expression unreadable. For a moment, they simply stared at each other, the weight of their shared history hanging between them. "What are you doing here, Ethan?" Clara asked, her tone calm but firm. Ethan hesitated, then sighed. I wanted to see you, to say something I should have said a long time ago." Clara crossed her arms, her gaze steady. "And what's that?" "I'm sorry," Ethan said quietly. "For everything. For how I treated you, for the way I tried to control you. You didn't deserve any of it." Clara studied him, searching for signs of insincerity, but found none. His words seemed genuine, his tone devoid of the arrogance she had once known so well. "I don't expect forgiveness," Ethan continued, "but I needed to tell you. You were right about me. I thought power and control made me strong, but they didn't. They just made me empty." Clara's expression softened, though she remained guarded. "It's not me you need to make peace with, Ethan. It's yourself." Ethan nodded, his shoulders sagging. "I'm trying. I don't know if I'll ever get there, but I'm trying." There was a moment of silence before Clara spoke again. "I hope you do, for your own sake." With that, Ethan offered a faint, almost wistful smile. "You've done well, Clara. You and Liam. I'm glad you're happy." Clara nodded, watching as Ethan turned and walked away. She felt no triumph in his downfall, only a sense of closure. He was no longer a shadow over her life. Moving forward, as the months passed, Clara and Liam continued to grow their business and deepen their connection. They used their success to uplift others, funding programs for small businesses and mentoring aspiring entrepreneurs. Their story became one of hope and resilience, a testament to the strength found in partnership and integrity. Ethan, meanwhile, began a journey of his own. He sold the mansion and most of his assets, choosing a quieter, humbler life. He started volunteering at a community center, helping others rebuild their lives. A small but meaningful step toward redemption. the legacy of resilience. Years later, Clara and Liam stood on the stage of a packed auditorium, receiving an award for their contributions to the community. As Clara accepted the plaque, she glanced at Liam, her partner in every sense of the word. "This journey hasn't been easy," Clara said, addressing the audience. "But it's taught us that strength doesn't come from wealth or power. It comes from the people who stand by you, the choices you make, and the purpose you find in helping others." The room erupted into applause, but for Clara and Liam, the real reward was the life they had built together. A life rooted in respect, love, and a shared commitment to making the world a better place. And somewhere, far from the spotlight, Ethan Whitmore watched their success from a distance. He felt a pang of regret, but also a glimmer of pride. He had lost them, but in a way, they had found something far greater, and he was grateful to have played even a small part in their story. Ethan's life, though quieter now, continued to shift as he worked on rebuilding himself. Volunteering at the community center brought him unexpected peace. He spent his days mentoring young people, helping them navigate challenges he once dismissed as insignificant. For the first time, he was using his privilege for something other than self-gratification. It wasn't redemption in the grand sense, but it was a step forward. One day, while organizing a workshop for aspiring entrepreneurs, Ethan found himself thinking about Clara and Liam. Their journey had become a cornerstone in his thoughts, a constant reminder of what humility, resilience, and partnership could achieve. He no longer viewed them through the lens of envy or bitterness, but as inspirations to keep improving himself. Clara and Liam's continued growth. Meanwhile, Clara and Liam's influence expanded far beyond their original logistics business. Their mentoring programs flourished, and they launched a foundation focused on providing grants and resources for underprivileged entrepreneurs. Their ability to connect with people on a personal level became the heart of their work. One of their most ambitious projects was a startup incubator designed to empower individuals from marginalized communities. They provided not only funding but also hands-on guidance, ensuring that each entrepreneur had the tools to succeed. During one of the incubator's inaugural events, Clara stood before a room filled with eager participants. Liam stood at her side, his quiet confidence grounding her as she spoke. "We started this journey with nothing but a belief in each other," Clara said, her voice steady. "And that belief became the foundation for everything we've built. This isn't just about business. It's about community, opportunity, and the courage to take a chance on yourself." Her words resonated deeply, drawing a standing ovation. For Clara and Liam, these moments weren't about accolades. They were about seeing the spark of hope ignite in others, just as it once had in them. A chance encounter. Years later, Clara and Liam were invited to speak at a charity gala benefiting the community center, where Ethan now volunteered. They had no idea he would be in attendance, but when they arrived at the event, there he was, standing off to the side, his posture more reserved than they remembered. Ethan noticed them immediately, his heart racing. He debated leaving, unsure if they would even want to see him. But before he could make a decision, Clara approached him. "Ethan," she said softly, her tone devoid of malice. "It's been a long time." Ethan nodded, his voice hesitant. "Clara, Liam, you both look..." "Well," Liam extended a hand, surprising Ethan. "Good to see you." Ethan hesitated for a moment before shaking it. "You too." There was an awkward pause before Clara spoke again. "I heard you've been working at the community center." "That's good work." Ethan offered a faint smile. "It's not much, but it feels right." For once, Clara nodded, sensing the sincerity in his words. "I'm glad." They didn't linger on the past. Instead, they talked briefly about their work, the gala, and their shared goals for supporting the community. By the end of the conversation, there was no animosity, only a quiet understanding that, though their paths had diverged, they had all grown in ways they hadn't thought possible. The final chapter. In the years that followed, Clara and Liam's foundation became a global force for change, helping thousands of people build better lives. Their story continued to inspire, not because of the challenges they had faced, but because of how they had chosen to rise above them. Ethan remained a quieter figure, dedicating his life to service and reflection. He never fully escaped the shadow of his past, but he found solace in the small ways he could contribute to the world. For him, redemption wasn't about erasing his mistakes, but about using them to guide his actions moving forward. A legacy of resilience and growth. Clara and Liam's lives were a testament to the power of resilience, love, and humility. They proved that even in the face of cruelty and adversity, it was possible to build something extraordinary. Their story was not just one of survival but of triumph, of turning pain into purpose and finding strength in partnership. And though Ethan's role in their journey had begun in malice, it had ultimately contributed to the incredible life they created together. In a way, his actions had forced them to discover their true potential, and for that, he found a quiet, bittersweet gratitude. The legacy of these three individuals, Clara, Liam, and Ethan, became a story retold for generations, a reminder that growth, redemption, and resilience are always within reach, no matter where you start or how far you fall. As time moved on, the intertwined paths of Clara, Liam, and Ethan became a story that was not only remembered but celebrated. It was a tale of transformation, of how adversity could forge strength, how love could heal, and how even the most flawed among us could find a way to contribute meaningfully. A shared vision. Clara and Liam's foundation continued to expand, touching lives in ways they could never have imagined. Their incubator program produced successful entrepreneurs who, in turn, gave back to their communities. The logistics business that had started as a small venture now operated internationally, using its profits to fund charitable efforts. One evening, as Clara and Liam were preparing for a gala celebrating their foundation's 20th anniversary, they reflected on how far they had come. Their lives, once disrupted by Ethan's cruelty, had flourished into something purposeful and enduring. "I never thought we'd be here," Liam said, adjusting his tie in the mirror. Clara smiled as she fastened her earrings. "Me neither. But I wouldn't change a single thing. Every challenge brought us here." Liam nodded, his gaze softening. "And I wouldn't want to do it with anyone else." Ethan's continued journey. Ethan's life remained quieter, but it was not without meaning. He continued his work at the community center, mentoring young people and sharing lessons from his mistakes. Though he rarely sought the spotlight, his impact was felt by those he helped, people who saw in him a reflection of their own struggles and potential. One day, while organizing a career workshop, Ethan was approached by a young man who looked nervous but determined. "Mr. Whitmore," the young man began, "I just wanted to thank you. The advice you gave me last year, it helped me turn things around. I got the job, and now I'm saving up to start my own business." Ethan's chest tightened with emotion. "That's all you," he said, his voice steady. "I just gave you a push. You did the rest." Moments like these reminded Ethan that redemption wasn't about grand gestures. It was about the quiet, consistent effort to make things right. An unexpected reunion. Years later, Clara and Liam's foundation launched a new initiative to support community centers across the country. During a site visit to one of their partner centers, Clara was surprised to see Ethan working alongside a group of volunteers. He was older now, with gray streaks in his hair and a softer demeanor. Ethan spotted Clara and Liam, his face breaking into a hesitant smile. He approached them, unsure of how his presence might be received. "Clara, Liam, it's good to see you," he said, his tone humble. Clara smiled warmly. "It's good to see you too, Ethan." Liam extended his hand, as he had years before. "Still making a difference, I see." Ethan chuckled softly, shaking Liam's hand. Trying to, at least. They spent a few minutes catching up, their conversation easy and devoid of the tension that had once defined their interactions. Clara and Liam could see that Ethan had genuinely changed, and while they didn't dwell on the past, there was an unspoken acknowledgement of how far they had all come. Before they parted ways, Ethan hesitated, then spoke. "I want you both to know, I'm proud of what you've built. I don't deserve any credit, but I'm glad to see the good that's come from it." Clara placed a hand on his arm. "It's never too late to make a difference, Ethan. You've found your path, and that matters." Ethan nodded, gratitude shining in his eyes. For the first time in a long while, he felt a sense of peace, a legacy secured. As the years turned into decades, the lives of Clara, Liam, and Ethan became a testament to resilience, transformation, and the enduring power of choice. Clara and Liam's foundation left an indelible mark on the world, creating opportunities for countless individuals to rise above their circumstances. Their love story, rooted in mutual respect and shared purpose, became a beacon of hope for others. Ethan's quieter journey of redemption inspired those who believed they had fallen too far to recover. Through his humility and service, he showed that it's never too late to change course and contribute meaningfully. The final reflection. In the twilight of their lives, Clara and Liam sat together on the porch of their countryside home, watching the sun dip below the horizon. Their hands were intertwined, their hearts full of gratitude for the life they had built together. "We've done well, haven't we?" Liam said softly. Clara leaned her head against his shoulder. "We have. And it's not just about what we've done. It's about what we've inspired in others." Far away, in a modest apartment, Ethan sat by a window, gazing at the same sunset. He thought of Clara and Liam, of the lives they had touched, and of the role he had played in their story, both as an antagonist and later as an unlikely ally. For all three of them, their journeys had been imperfect but profound. And as the sun set on their shared legacy, their stories continued to ripple outward, proving that no matter where you start, it's never too late to rise, to grow, and to give. We are not defined by our past, but by what we choose to become. As the years passed, the story of Clara, Liam, and Ethan evolved into something more than just a tale of redemption, resilience, and growth. It became a powerful example of how individual choices, whether born out of malice, desperation, or determination, could ripple outward, touching countless lives in unforeseen ways. The foundation's global impact. Clara and Liam's foundation expanded internationally, creating a network of programs that uplifted underprivileged communities. The incubator program they started became a blueprint for other organizations, offering mentorship, funding, and education to aspiring entrepreneurs worldwide. Many of these entrepreneurs credited their success to the lessons instilled by Clara and Liam's story: humility, hard work, and a commitment to giving back. At one of the foundation's international conferences, a young woman stood on stage, sharing her story of overcoming adversity. She had been one of the foundation's earliest mentors, and now she owned a thriving business that employed hundreds of people in her community. "Clara and Liam taught me that failure isn't the end," she said, her voice steady with emotion. "They showed me that with the right support and the courage to believe in yourself, anything is possible." Their story is proof that even the darkest moments can lead to light. Clara and Liam sat in the audience, their hands intertwined. Hearing stories like this reaffirmed their purpose and reminded them why they had fought so hard to build what they had. Ethan's continued evolution. Ethan's quiet life of service became a source of meaning he never thought possible. The community center he volunteered at flourished under his guidance, thanks to his organizational skills and the wisdom he had gained through his mistakes. He mentored countless individuals, sharing his story not as a cautionary tale, but as a testament to the power of change. Over time, Ethan began writing about his experiences. What started as journal entries for himself turned into essays and, eventually, a book, titled Humbled: My Journey from Power to Purpose. The book chronicled his transformation and the lessons he had learned along the way. It became a bestseller, resonating with people from all walks of life who were searching for redemption or a path forward. Ethan donated all proceeds from the book to Clara and Liam's foundation, quietly supporting the mission he had once tried to undermine. A reunion of purpose. Years later, Clara, Liam, and Ethan found themselves together once more, this time at a ceremony honoring the foundation's 50th anniversary. The event was held in the very city where their intertwined story had begun, symbolizing how far they had all come. Clara stood on stage, addressing a packed auditorium filled with supporters, beneficiaries, and partners of the foundation. Her voice was strong, her words heartfelt. "When we started this journey, we didn't know where it would lead," she began. "But we knew one thing: that resilience, kindness, and purpose could overcome even the greatest obstacles. What we've built isn't just a foundation, it's a movement. It's a promise that no matter where you come from, you have the power to create change. She turned to Liam, who stepped forward to add his own thoughts. This story isn't about us, he said. It's about all of you. Every person who's taken a chance, who's believed in their potential, and who's reached back to lift someone else up. Together, we've proven that strength isn't found in power. It's found in community. The audience erupted into applause, and as Clara and Liam stepped back, they invited Ethan to join them on stage. He hesitated at first, but the encouraging smiles of Clara and Liam convinced him. Standing beside them, Ethan spoke briefly but powerfully. I once believed that my worth was tied to my wealth and status, but I was wrong. True worth comes from the lives we touch and the legacy we leave behind. Clara and Liam taught me that, and for that I am forever grateful. The final chapter. As the ceremony concluded, the three of them stood together, watching as attendees mingled and shared their stories. The energy in the room was electric, filled with hope and possibility. Clara turned to Ethan, her expression thoughtful. You've come a long way. Ethan smiled faintly. Thanks to both of you. Liam placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder. It's never too late to do good. You've proven that. For a moment, they stood in silence, reflecting on the journey that had brought them to this point. Their paths had been messy and complicated, but they had all found their way towards something meaningful, a legacy that lives on. In the years that followed, Clara and Liam's foundation continued to thrive, leaving a lasting impact on communities around the world. Ethan remained a steadfast supporter, dedicating his remaining years to service and reflection. When the three of them eventually passed on, their legacies lived on in the countless lives they had touched. Their story became more than just a memory. It became a guiding light, reminding future generations that redemption, resilience, and purpose were always within reach. Decades later, a young girl walked through the halls of a museum dedicated to Clara and Liam's foundation. She stopped in front of an exhibit that told their story, her eyes wide with wonder as she read about their journey. Nearby, a plaque bore the words that had defined their lives. Strength isn't found in power. It's found in purpose, in resilience, and in the lives we touch. The girl turned to her parents, her voice filled with determination. I want to do something like this one day. Her parents smiled. You can, because just like Clara, Liam, and Ethan, you have the power to change the world. And so, their story continued, passed from generation to generation. A timeless reminder of what was possible when love, humility, and purpose triumphed over cruelty, arrogance, and despair. As the young girl's words echoed in the museum, her curiosity deepened. She wandered further into the exhibit, where interactive displays allowed visitors to delve into specific chapters of Clara, Liam, and Ethan's story. Each display highlighted the pivotal moments of their intertwined lives. The humiliation Ethan had orchestrated, Clara and Liam's resilience, and Ethan's eventual path to redemption. The girl stopped at a holographic projection of Clara, mid-speech, from one of her foundation's conferences. True strength isn't about how much you can take. It's about how much you can give back. Clara's voice rang out. When we invest in each other, when we uplift the people around us, we create a better world for everyone. The girl turned to her parents. Did they really help that many people? Her father nodded, pride evident in his expression. They did. And not just with money, they gave people hope. They believed in others when no one else did. Her mother added, and Ethan's part of the story shows that even when we make mistakes, we can still choose to do good. That's what makes their story so powerful. It's about redemption, resilience, and purpose, a monument to change. In the years that followed, the museum became a global landmark. People traveled from all over the world to see the exhibits, hear the speeches, and learn from the programs inspired by Clara, Liam, and Ethan's work. Outside the museum stood a statue, a simple yet striking sculpture of 3 hands interlocked, symbolizing partnership, humility, and shared purpose. At the base of the statue was an inscription. In our darkest moments, we find the strength to rise. In rising, we discover our purpose. And in purpose, we leave a legacy. The statue became a symbol of hope, a place where people came to reflect, to heal, and to find inspiration. Generations of impact. The programs Clara and Liam had started continued to grow, expanding into every corner of the globe. Their incubators had produced thousands of successful entrepreneurs who carried forward the values of empathy and service. Many of these individuals credited the foundation not just for their success but for the profound lessons it taught about humanity and perseverance. Ethan's legacy, though quieter, also endured. The community center where he had spent his later years became a hub for mentorship programs and youth development. His book, Humbled: My Journey from Power to Purpose, was studied in schools and leadership programs, offering a raw and honest account of how even the most flawed individuals could find redemption. The ripple effect. One day, decades after Clara, Liam, and Ethan's time, a global summit was held to celebrate the impact of their work. Leaders from around the world gathered to discuss how their principles, resilience, humility, and shared purpose could address the challenges of the modern era. A keynote speaker, a young woman who had once been a beneficiary of the Foundation's programs, spoke passionately about how their legacy had shaped her life. Clara and Liam taught us that strength comes from lifting others, she said. Ethan showed us that redemption is possible, even after great mistakes. Together, they proved that change starts with one choice, one action, one belief that we can do better. Not just for ourselves but for each other. The audience erupted into applause, moved by her words. Clara, Liam, and Ethan's influence had become a guiding light for a new generation of leaders, thinkers, and changemakers. The final reflection. Though Clara, Liam, and Ethan were long gone, their story remained alive in the hearts and minds of people across the world. It wasn't just a story of three individuals. It was a testament to what humanity could achieve when guided by compassion, resilience, and the courage to change. In every community center, in every small business incubator, in every life touched by their foundation, their legacy lived on. And as long as there were people willing to rise above their circumstances, to believe in each other, and to fight for a better world, their story would continue, forever a reminder of what is possible when love, humility, and purpose prevail. As the decades passed, the world continued to evolve, but the story of Clara, Liam, and Ethan remained a beacon of hope. Their intertwined journey, marked by adversity, resilience, and redemption, was more than just a tale told in museums or leadership conferences. It had become a cultural cornerstone, shaping the way people viewed relationships, community, and the power of transformation. A global day of purpose. In honor of their legacy, the world celebrated an annual event known as the Day of Purpose. On this day, people from all walks of life participated in acts of kindness, community service, and self-reflection. Schools taught lessons on humility and resilience. Businesses dedicated resources to supporting underprivileged communities, and individuals took time to connect with those around them. At the heart of these celebrations was the idea that anyone, regardless of their past or present circumstances, had the power to make a difference. The day was not about perfection but about intention, a chance for everyone to take small steps toward building a better world. The Eternal Tree. In the city where Clara and Liam first started their foundation, a massive tree had been planted in their memory. Known as the Eternal Tree, it stood in the center of a bustling park, its roots deep and its branches wide. Surrounding the tree were plaques bearing the names of individuals and organizations that had been inspired by their work. Every year, during the Day of Purpose, people gathered at the tree to share stories of how Clara, Liam, and Ethan's lives had influenced them. Some spoke of overcoming personal struggles, while others shared how they had used their resources to uplift others. The tree became a living symbol of their legacy, growing stronger and more beautiful with each passing year. A final look at their legacy. In a quiet moment, long after the crowds had dispersed, a young boy stood beneath the Eternal Tree with his grandmother. He was clutching a children's book that told the story of Clara, Liam, and Ethan in simple, inspiring language. His wide eyes were filled with wonder as he looked up at the towering branches. "Grandma," he asked, his voice curious, "do you think I could do something like they did?" His grandmother smiled, her eyes glistening with tears. "Of course you can. Clara and Liam weren't born heroes. They were just like you, people who made choices even when it was hard. And Ethan? He proved that it's never too late to change." The boy looked at the book again, running his fingers over the illustrations of Clara and Liam standing side by side. "I think I want to plant a tree like this one someday." His grandmother chuckled softly, pulling him into a hug. "And when you do, remember what they taught us. Real strength is in the lives you touch and the love you leave behind. The power of stories." The impact of Clara, Liam, and Ethan's journey was not confined to their foundation or the institutions they had built. It was carried forward in the stories people told, stories that inspired action, courage, and hope. Their tale was retold in schools, reimagined in plays and films, and woven into the fabric of countless lives. In one such retelling, a teacher stood before her class, holding up a photograph of Clara and Liam. The students leaned forward eagerly as she spoke. "They didn't just overcome obstacles," the teacher explained. "They turned those obstacles into stepping stones, not just for themselves but for others. And Ethan, he showed us that even when we've made mistakes, we can still choose to do better." A student raised her hand. "So it's not about being perfect?" The teacher smiled. "Exactly. It's about trying, about choosing to grow no matter where you start." The circle of influence. As the boy who had visited the eternal tree grew older, he carried its lessons with him. He became a leader in his community, dedicated to helping others find their footing. Inspired by the story of Clara, Liam, and Ethan, he started a mentorship program that focused on empowering young people from disadvantaged backgrounds. One day, as he stood beneath a tree he had planted in his town square, he thought back to that moment with his grandmother. He realized that the impact of Clara, Liam, and Ethan wasn't confined to their time. It was a ripple, expanding endlessly through the actions of others. He placed a hand on the tree's trunk, whispering a quiet promise to continue their work, to honor their legacy not just in words but in deeds. An endless legacy. The story of Clara, Liam, and Ethan became a testament to the enduring power of choice. It showed that even the most painful moments could lead to growth, that love and humility could overcome arrogance and cruelty, and that redemption was always possible, no matter how far one had fallen. Their legacy was not about perfection but about persistence. It was a reminder that every act of kindness, every moment of resilience, and every choice to do better added up to something greater than oneself. And so, long after their time had passed, their story continued to inspire, living on in the hearts, minds, and actions of those who believed in the boundless potential of humanity. For in the lives they touched and the love they left behind, Clara, Liam, and Ethan proved that even the smallest seeds could grow into forests of hope.